It's ad break time. I'm proud to announce that the Beyond Solitaire podcast is sponsored by Central Michigan University's Center for Learning Through Games and Simulations. They just successfully funded their most recent game, Greg Loring Albright's Keep the Faith, which is a light RPG about the growth of a religion. If you missed the campaign, do keep an eye out for a chance to late pledge in the coming weeks. Also, if you'd like to support Beyond Solitaire, please head to patreon.com/Beyond Solitaire to help me keep the lights on. For now, though, enjoy the show. Hey gamers, this is Liz Davis from Beyond Solitaire, and this week on the pod I have a very special guest. This is Dr. Lichao Zhu. He is a professor at the Université Paris-Cité who researches linguistics in games. How are you doing today, Lichao?
Hi, everyone. Fine. I'm doing well. Thank you for Liz for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you on. So, I first heard about your work because you are working with Natalia Swartz and Chris Gledhill on the Polymatrix Ukraine game. So, can you talk a little bit about your role in that project, since people have heard about it before on this podcast?
Yeah, I'm actually working with Natalia and Chris on the polymetric games. Well, it's a game with multiple objectives, scientific objectives. First on polymetric game, on metrics game. So it's kind of pedagogical games that are designed to simulate the what is happening on Earth. Kind, for example, the wars, famines, conflicts, things like that. So Natalia and his group have designed the board games, so the metric games, to with very interesting subjects. Well, actually, currently, they are being playing Ukraine war game, so to see whether we can solve the conflicts by all kinds of strategies. And they will record each gameplay, videos, audios, and Chris and I will process the recordings. So we'll try to do transcriptions with the recordings with automatic approach. Basically, we'll use some language models like Whisper that was created by OpenAI that will help us to transcript very easily and automatically the audios into text, because that's what we need to try to find out the characteristics in the discourse in the gameplay, because in different phase in the gameplay, the gamers will interact differently. So we try to build a typology to describe different phases based on interactions with between gamers. And we have also a annotation platform which called Inception. So we'll basically upload the transcriptions into that platform, and we will use labels and tag sets to tag the segments that we think that will have in a very interesting role to play in the discourse. So basically, we have 13 or 14 tag sets or labels to just highlight, for example, the game organization, the negotiation phase, or conflict phase, things like that. So by doing that, we hopefully we can build a annotation model that will predict the according to the game phase, predict the interactions and will label automatically segments. And the model itself is also a way that we can be sure that our labelings and our typology are correct. So it's kind of we try to use the data that we collect from gameplay, and we try to do analysis on that with a linguistic approach.
That is super interesting. So, just because AI has been a big topic in board gaming recently, and I think in a lot of other areas, when you say that you're using AI, what do you think that AI can contribute to your project? And how does that impact your feelings about other types of AI, like generative AI, for example?
Oh, it's a very good question. So this project is without AI, I think we will not able to do this project because we have 12, 13 recordings. Each of them is about 1 hour. So imagine we'll have to transcribe all these recordings manually. That would take a lot of time, and I think without AI, we'll be still doing that. So AI plays a very important role in accelerating the processing of data, and can um, um, put things in the right order. For example, I can build a pipeline which will deal with automatically transcription and correction and annotations. So AI help us in what we do in this project to really make things in order and do things automatically, and it help us to uh, highlight the parts that are maybe have problems. So in this way, AI is very important for us in scientific research. But I use a lot of AIs in my teachings and my research, and there are all kinds of AIs. And recently, the generative AI like GPT, like Llama, like Mistral, and the French model, or like the newest DeepSeek Chinese model. They are basically reasoning models that were trained on billions or trillions of words. They can have kind of artificial intelligences and can generate rather with very high quality of text, can do summaries, they can extract keywords, they can explain the scripts and the codes. So it's kind of tools that will help us to accelerate the learnings, accelerate the processing procedures, and automatically unchain things. I mean, you can ask AI to AI to automatically do several things together without manual intervention. It will do it. But in every step, so when we use AI, we are the ones who are responsible for what AI produces. So we'll be very careful about the AI's outputs. We should always keep an eye on it to see whether it's right or not. So we have a methodology precautions here. When we use AI, we need it's not a blind trust on there's no blind trust on AI. So it's kind of tools that will help us to do what we want him to do, and we'll always be careful what AI produce.
Interesting. And then you also mentioned, so when I actually played the Polymatrix game, I'm in one of those recordings somewhere. But
All right.
when I filled out the form, it asked what languages can you speak. So it made me wonder, are all of the recordings that you're working with for this game in English, or are you working across multiple languages because it's an international group that's playing?
Well, well, in Parliament projects, we work with English because all the players speak English in the gameplay. But I think language is not a problem when we have AI models. For example, Whisper can work with several other languages like French, like Spanish. Um, but in polymetric games, it's in English. But I work on another project, word game project with Chris, which is on Esperanto. So you can also do things with on Esperanto with AI. So the AI help us to use multilingual models, but um, some languages are well resourced than others, like English, French, Spanish, German. They are well resourced language, and others are poorly resourced, poorly endowed. So that depends.
So, what is the current state of like conclusions that you are drawing right now about the data that you're getting from the Polymatrix games? What what can you say about what you have found so far from all of our contributions?
Oh, we are still uh, researching, right? We're still researching because we are when have not got all the data transcribed correctly. So we are doing human corrections based on the transcription that are produced by the AI, by the Whisper model. And at the same time, we have been starting to do some annotations, Chris and I, and we found out there are some regularities in some sentence patterns. For example, one when one is designated as Russia or Ukraine, there's some kinds of sentences. Well, I Vladimir Putin, I want do something like that. So they the gamers are assuming that they are Ukraine president, Russian president. So at some kind of point, you can find out the subject change, and the way that the gamers speak change too. So so they will kind of impersonate Russian president if they are in a more advantage place compared to Ukraine. They'll say, okay, no, I won't do that. Well, I'm the stronger, so I will impose I will move my army to your region, things like that. So it's really so this kind of situations and this kind of discourse, because they are a discourse uh, speech, they are really interesting for us because they will help us to um, to mark the phases in gameplay. So, for example, when the gamers try to play a country, to play Russia or Ukraine, we are probably in the phase of negotiations, for example. And then, for example, in game organization, they'll sentence like, "Am I playing Russia? Well, if I move to that, I will have 2 points. And if I do this, am I going to be punished? How many scores? How many points?" Um, and there are referees. There are no, not referees. There are kind of so play sometimes plays by Natalia, a monitor, adjudicator. Sorry, this way the adjudicator will tell the gamers, you have the right to do this, you have the right to do that, but if you do this, and the other one can do that too. And well, this is another phase of a game. So to mark these phases, they are we don't use manual separations like we do in text analysis. We can draw a line to say that before the line it's the game organization, and after the line is a negotiation, and after negotiations well conclusion. No, we'll be labeling data. Each sentence will give a label. If it is kind of it's a request with an answer, or it's a reject. It's a weak reject or a strong reject. And is it for example a sorry a an exchange? And by doing this, we can quantify the labels, and we can draw a kind of map in which we can see, okay, in this phase, we got a lot of reject labels. Well, in that zone, we got a lot of request labels. So what is happening there? Or the gamers, what is the arguments between the gamers, and what is the conclusion of that? So so the labeling really help us to dive deep into the data to reveal the details in the textual data. So that's the kind of thing that they really interest us, and by focusing on data, so we can build a model, annotation models, that will help us to do predictions. So that's so what I said before.
Interesting. So, when I asked you on the podcast, I think you were worried because your work doesn't necessarily involve board games, but you do linguistics, and that means that your work could be anything involving language, really, I guess. So, why games? You do like to look at linguistics as they play out, like in play. And so, what attracts you to that, and what do you think that it gives you?
Yeah, that's a really a good and strong question because um, that's the game. I think the game, the word game, and the language games. The reason why I do research in university because I for my PhD for my thesis um, I've been working on a sarcastic journal, a French journal that which is called Le Galet Enchaîné. Well, this is uh, it's a very special journal. It is created in the 1920s, so it's over 100 years ago, and it used a very sarcastic language and used a lot of puns and well, and just I mean, the journalists are very um, um, good at making word games. They will use kind of well, the way they will change the words in an expression, so the expression will be polysemic, so that may have double meanings or triple meanings, or they use some kind of paronyms. I mean, the two words that sound quite similarly, they will change the one word by the other. So there are another meanings that were created. So I did my PhD on that, and I think the word game, it's really a kind of a little window um, over uh, the language functioning. Yeah, I think it's a small part of language that was kind of abandoned or it's ignored by very large by lots of people because they are not in the norm. They are not in normality. They are not in the normal ways that people will use language. They are sometimes really badly considered because we don't do word games in conversations. But I think word games are really important to see how the language is dynamic, how the people can speak a write differently language, uh, and in this way, I, I think it's a way of really uh, mm, I think orthodox way, and we will see really will push the language into some extent that we can see how the language will behave when we try um, to break the norms, break the rules of language normality, how the language will behave, will behave, how the people will react fits into that. So that's really that's my my principal interest in what I'm doing. So after my PhD, um, um, I think I keep doing on that research subject, but I've reoriented my research with a computer processing, try to do modelings in puns in word games. That is to try to create rules, criterias, try to create combinations of words that will generate automatically the word games, to see whether they have meanings, to see whether they can be understood by people, to see whether they are fit in some kind of appropriate or inappropriate context, things like that. So yeah, that's my kind of perception, my perceptions on language, that begin with really small linguistic phenomenon, rather than grammar, rather than very official texts or discourse. I was really interested in the small marginal linguistic phenomena, try to understand the real how far the language can go, and how the speakers will interact when the language is not the language they used to use, or they used to hear, or they used to speak. Well, and in the game research with the language, um, I think it's some kind of some kind of common grounds based on what I do, what is game. And in for example, in the gameplays, they are the discourse, the language, especially games like matches games, or like diplomacy or other kind of games. The people talk a lot, and they negotiate. They will express themselves. That's really interesting, because they do not use a normed language. They use a kind of fictional language to have something that they want to have, um, to obtain things, um, to achieve some goals. So they use a fictional language, and this language is not the language we used to know in books and texts, nor in usual conversations. It's kind of a language that we create between gamers. So, but that interests me a lot, because I can use that to model, to do modeling, linguistic modelings, try to find out whether language is still language in that kind of circumstances, and what linguist competence we need in this kind of situations in gameplays. Um, what technical um, characteristics in argumentations, things to, if you want to have something, what kind of words, what kind of sentence you use to have that thing, what verbs you use to do this, and intonations, what kind of intonations you use to do to persuade someone. And yeah, so the linguistics is really a tool uh, that can reveal a lot of things with data. And but my experience in linguistics is that maybe the small things, the small linguistic marginal phenomena can tell us a lot of things that we don't know about linguistics, about language, because um, many works focus on the things we already know, but try to formalize a little bit more. But the things we don't know, or things we ignore, or we don't see a lot, they're also very interesting and can tell us a lot more than we thought they could.
Oh, that's interesting. So tell me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing here is that in a way that when you're doing linguistics in games, there's two ways you do that. One is that when people play games, they speak a bit differently. Like they've entered into a play space where they are not talking quite the way they would in normal life. But then also because I mean, language has rules. You can play with those rules and turn language itself into a game.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's kind of it's kind of a two circles that will go together. Uh, the language itself, it's kind of material for gaming. Right? We can play with language. We can play on language, and language is also a tool in gaming. Also, in matrix games, um, we need to use language. Absolutely, we need to know how to say, to negotiate, how to reject, how to request, how to impose the law in action on your opponent to get what you want. So uh, you cannot use the common language that you use every day to do that. You must enter in in a role, a game role, in that was uh, um, attributed to you. For example, if you will play a country leader, a president, that you will endorse the role of president, and you will speak like a president, try to speak like a president, and you can imagine yourself really have the power like a president. So when you're into the game, you don't speak like you speak every day um, with others, with your family, and with your friends. So so that's really, and this kind of the hidden power, the hidden part of the language, because the language allows you to use uh, whatever you want, and um, whatever the situation is. And in this kind of situation, in this kind of um, games where language plays a real role, and we can use tools to study language, to study games. That's why we have a kind of a pipeline with, if you can know how the language functions, so you can really uh, formalize language. So you can, if you can formalize language, so you can formalize also the gameplay in which language plays a real important role. So I think uh, in such games, um, the studies on linguistics will be very useful in revealing the details in the gameplay. So for example, the emotions of people. and the intentions, people's intentions when someone says, "I want that part, uh, I want that region." It's really, it's in a very strong expression. It means a really strong will to get, to take over something, to occupy something, things like that. So that is the power of language. So, uh, I mean, so what we do is to have tools and methods to highlight this kind of power in language and to tell people, uh, if you say this, you have a consequence like that. So it's important to know how to um, argument, how to negotiate, how to conclude a negotiation uh, by using the language. And by doing so, for me, it's interesting to have another research object because just by now I work a lot with a terminology or specialized texts in other kind of domain, but never in real gameplay. So for me, the uh, the gameplay, the gameplay data, the gameplay discourse data is also a new kind of research subject for me as linguist.
Interesting. So you also mentioned that you and Chris are working on a project about puns in Esperanto.
Yeah,
So how do
it's
you choose what language to work in? And then also tell me a bit about that project.
oh, I don't really choose language. I mean, I was I would be interested in working with all languages. Um, the thing is that I don't speak Esperanto, although I'm trying to learn that, but I don't speak that language. Uh, what I do with Chris is try to understand how Esperanto functions, the mechanism uh, of language functioning of Esperanto. That's what interests me um, in the very big at the very beginning. So Chris tells me uh, that Esperanto is a language that is there are which is are a lot of variations, morphological variations, combination variations. You change a vowel, and you can change the meaning of a word, and you can different combination vowels and consonants. And Chris is interested about paranym and in Esperanto. I mean, the paranym is kind of the way that Esperanto can create new words, I think, and it can really, it's a source of confusion, but it's source of also of learning for new Esperantists because that's what I mean. That's how the people, how the learners will know the combination rules. They try not um, um, to take a word uh, for another. So with Chris, we try to um, get a rather global view of paronyms in Esperanto, by assembling a big list of words that might be the candidates for paronyms in Esperanto. So he has dictionaries, glossaries, word lists, and texts. So it's kind of materials I would like to have to do linguistic processings. So I started to by creating a script, a Python script um, that will use the added distance. That's kind of a measure that will calculate the distance, distance with two words. Positional distance, for example, if between um, table for two words for the table, a label. If you have two words, two letters that are different, so you have a distance for one, just you do a substitution of one letter by the other. Then we can calculate that kind of distance. By doing this, we can extract the words from a reference word. We can extract the word that are formally similar to the reference word. Of course, we will add other criteria to try to take the words that are not really paronyms. But we have the first results that are really exciting. We are and Chris are trying to see whether they are really paronyms in Esperanto or the words or the words they are just a formal similar.
Interesting. Okay, so you mentioned that you wrote a Python script, and so now I
Yeah.
have to ask. So at the time that I was in school, people were starting to let students take a computer language as their language, like instead of something like French or Spanish. To what extent do you feel that a computer language is a language? And is that something that gets discussed in your field?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's language that we use to communicate with machine. It's a new language, not a natural language. So we do not consider Python, Perl, or Java as a natural language. Natural language are what language we use, we speak, but it's a machine language that we use to communicate with machines, so the machine can help us do things. Um, it's very helpful if we want to extract the knowledge extractions. We want to learn faster, more in less time, for example. So it's interesting with the automated approach to try to get us with the appropriate data selection, for example, uh, because we have trillions, tons of words and texts, things like that. Humans cannot read that quantity of data. So programming language like Python, they have libraries that can help us to do mm, text analysis, do knowledge extractions, and do modelings that will help us to learn and to progress with the real data. So that's kind of benefits that the machine language will bring us. And yeah, um, um, fortunately, uh, in um, um, in France, for example, in human sciences, uh, not all the universities teach programming language or language programming. Um, I think one of the things that um, we need to I know uh, to put on the schedule, because the at the speed the AI evaluates. I think the students in a human science, they are not who are not formed or who are not taught with uh, reasoning. I mean, human machine dialogue, human machine communication, and the machine reasonings. There will be kind of cast away by what is going on in AI, because we need tools to understand how AI functions. We need tools to evaluate the AI outputs and the performances. We need tools to intervene in what AI is producing. So that kind, I mean, with that as with these things as perspectives, I think we need to reinforce this in from my point of view, reinforce the in course and lectures, this kind of multidisciplinary teachings with human sciences, programming, why not, or human digital humanities. Try to uh, familiarize students with new technology, new working methods.
Interesting. All right. So, just one more question. I want to ask about Ludocorpus. So, you're part of an organization called Ludocorpus. It looks to me like it's just an organization that brings gaming into academic discourse in a number of ways. But what is your role, and how do you see the academy, I guess, treating games and discussion of play now as opposed to earlier in your career?
I am a member of a scientific committee of Ludocorpus. It's a Ludocorpus. It's a um, researcher. It's a groupment of scientific researchers. We are professors, researchers, and people who doing in the university who are doing game research in some humanity laboratories. We are 13, 14 in our scientific committees, and we are funded by Française des Jeux, which is um, a public organism in gambling, because it's an organism that is funded by uh, um, the soldiers that have been disabled after the First World War, that we called Gulgase, because they are deformed by injuries, so they are kind of kind of abandoned. So they are being organized to fund a lottery, a gambling system that they can refund their needs. Again, um, with some benefits. Though they are actually being managed by Francis Desjeux. So it's an organism. Oh, well, two partial things. It's generate benefits with a lottery and gambling games, and other part is it supports a lot of scientific research on gaming and game and gambling research. So each year we have a call for projects that will normally it's in October or November. So for so any researchers, French researchers can candidate on that on the call for projects uh, for for the projects that are accepted must put the game on the first plan on the in the project. I mean, game in a very large extent of word. Can be a gambling game, can be lottery, can be old games, ancient games, can be game and a relationship, game and its relation with humanity, can be game in literature, because we have organized a very big international conference last year about literature and gambling, game, etc. in Sorbonne, and can be game with linguistics, can be game with sociology, ethnology, things like that. So again, in very large extent of its meaning. And Ludocopus, it's also a website, social medias with Ludocopus that we publish a lot of contents. We do talks, interviews for example, in entrée, jeu d'entrée. It's kind of interview that can be published in the and YouTube and the website of Ludocopus, that we will be interviewing researchers doing research in game, gambling, or other things. And we can also we will also publish works each year. We publish a kind of collections of works on game or gambling, and other various subjects on game. And so it's a groupment of researchers, non-beneficial, because when we take a decision, the FDG will will not intervene in our decisions. So our scientific committee is totally independent. This is fixed by the contract that we establish with the FDG. The very important clause to guarantee our academic independency with the organism, and yeah, we have contacts with other research organism and institutions, with our partner in Paris Nord, Sorbonne Paris Nord, Gaming Lab, in the other institutions in Europe and in the world. We have partners in Canada, uh, in Switzerland, in Italy, in Spain, in China too. So lots of collaborations, and hopefully we can also have collaborators in the United States. So yeah, um, we're interested in gaming from France, but we have a also an international ambition and the vision of what is game are.
Interesting. Do you think that universities are taking games more seriously now than they did in the past?
Well, that's is a big question. I think so. I think so. And um, the university is in France. University is a kind of sanctuary that we often we fix rules in what we do. But I think we have for example, researchers who do research in games, they will use game in uh, their teachings. I myself use copies of Le Cadet Enchaîné, the psychiatrist journals, as my teaching materials. So um, in linguistic teachings, games will be a very interesting way to uh, to gamify the teachings so that the students can learn faster with non-monotone way. So it's important to keep students curious all the way and then uh, in their learning. Um, this is the first point. The second point is the game and the gaming are I think are taking part in really in an interdisciplinary approach, a way of doing research um, and teachings. Um, for example, in my faculty, uh, for example, I know Chris is doing some research, some teachings in Esperanto with games, and uh, will be giving a course on discourse using games examples. I myself will I use game examples, speech and games to try to I don't know, try to make students uh, think about how the language functions. But the game is really, for me, it's really important to have a place for game in the teaching research. Because when if we don't do that, I think we'll only see the things we want to see in the language. That's very dangerous for us. So it's for me, it's a necessity to have game in research in teaching. But I am unable to tell you if the general situation, a global situation in French university evolve in favor of game in gaming in teachings or in research. But I can tell you that more and more researchers uh, are interested in gaming research. For example, as a member of a scientific community in Ludo Corpus, we um, are we have received more and more project demands on gaming research on all kinds of disciplines. This year, for example, we have demands for cinematography. We have literature. We have linguistic studies, which uses gaming as a tool, a learning tool. We have also projects like um, um, sociology, to use the game as uh, kind of support to use game to analyze the social emotions in the students in classes, or to observe their progress by playing games. So I think in a lot of human sciences disciplines, the game is really important. It's commonly be used as tools, used as a observatory kind of front line in what we can do with other disciplines. So I think I am optimistic about that.
Amazing. All right, so it's been about an hour, which means that I've kept you a while, but I'm gonna ask just the normal softy questions at the end. So one is, so you do a lot of research on gaming. What are you playing that you enjoy?
Well, all kinds of games. I play lot of board games. Um, kind of. I like well, matches game. I like a lot. I like word games. Kind of Dixit. It's really interesting. You s- you try to make guess your partners by um, creating some kind of word games. So I like a lot. I play a lot of video games too. All kinds of video games, strategy games, RPG games too, and I play card games. Um, well, all kinds of. So yes, I'm a game players in my spare time.
Excellent. And if people want to follow you or learn about your work, where can you be found online?
Well, I am on Blue Sky, and I'm on Twitter with Lichao Zhu. You can find me with my Lichao Lichao ZHU, and I I'm not very I'm not a good social media um, player, but I will read the message I get. I will answer you shortly.
Fantastic. Leisha, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. And I feel like I learned a lot talking to you.
Thank you very much, Liz, for inviting me, and then thank you. I've had a really good time, and very glad to talk with you guys. Thank you.
All right, everybody. You can find me anywhere online as Beyond Solitaire. But until we see each other again, please like, subscribe, comment, ask questions, and most of all, happy gaming.